Here is my introduction to ecology for anyone who's interested. Okay, ecology. So, usually a subject, the very first class of a subject, they give a definition of what that subject is. Ecology is... What do you think ecology is? Pause the video and give a guess. Ecology is the interactions of living things with each other and the environment. Yeah. Oh, the study, sorry. It's the study of how living things interact with each other and the environment. Okay, and so one of the things that a word that we're going to define soon as we study that ecology is the biosphere. That part of which the biosphere is that part of Earth that supports life. So what part of Earth supports life? Well, quite high into the atmosphere there's bacteria floating around. And also deep in the sea there could be hydrothermal vents with all kinds of life. And much of the sea also has autotrophic single-celled organisms and maybe plankton. So basically the surface of the Earth is the biosphere. Now Earth as a planet is very large, and it's only if Earth was to be compared to an onion or an apple, it would only be something like the skin that the biosphere is. That is the part of the planet where we have Earth, as far as we know. Okay. What is the biosphere? And as I mentioned, it is that part of Earth in which life exists. We're going to define two important terms very soon. One of them is abiotic factors, the other one is biotic factors. But if we look here at these different ecosystems, we can see the abiotic factors are pretty important. So deserts very hot. Many deserts are very hot and dry. You got other places like tundra that's very cold much of the year, prairie where there is rainfall. So it's the abiotic factors, which are the non-living factors in an ecosystem, which I just mentioned, will be important. Can't imagine studying a polar bear. If you're studying a polar bear, you'd be intrigued by all the adaptations it has to deal with very cold weather and very long sort of dark winters. So those are the things that I just described are abiotic factors. They're not alive, but you would also be interested in biotic factors, because that polar bear, being a predator, being a meat eater, is going to be affected by other living things, i.e. can it catch the seals, can it catch the fish, or are there fish, are there seals? Biotic factors. And these are the living factors in the ecosystem, and ecologists are also very much interested in them. And there we see an example of predation, where a jaguar has killed a cattle. So we have an example of biotic factors in an ecosystem, which I already mentioned. Say that again. Here we have some levels of organization. Okay, I'll begin down here. Ecologists study organisms ranging... Okay, so at the very bottom, at the very smallest scale, you have an individual with species. Yeah, so it's that kind of... It's an individual of that species. And here we've got a reindeer. We have several reindeer together, then it's the population. Whatever the population of that area that we're studying, I don't know how big it might be. Then we move into a larger classification, which is the community. So now it's not just reindeer we might be talking about, we might be talking about other populations of other animals, population of hare or rabbits, population of wolves, population of certain birds, whatever. And then when we get even bigger, we talk about ecosystem. And the ecosystem is commonly like what the previous photographs I showed you. The ecosystem could be a desert ecosystem, it could be a rainforest ecosystem, but they're like different places where these animals live. And the biome would be a collection of somewhat similar ecosystems, I guess. I don't actually have a formal definition for biome. Please get one yourself. Okay, and the biosphere, which we already mentioned, is that part of the earth in which life exists. What is an ecosystem? Well, we just saw there that it's one level up from communities, so it's communities of species interacting with each other and also interacting with the environment. The ecosystem is made up of the interactions among the populations in a community and the community's surroundings. Okay, so yeah, it just sounds about like the definition of ecology to begin with. Alright, ecosystems can be on land or in the sea, and as I mentioned, there are many, and here we have a beautiful picture of an ecosystem under the sea. This one is at coral reef, looks like, which have many, which are very diverse. You can see there's all kinds of fish and all kinds of organisms. What is habitat? The habitat is this very simple word to define. It's simply where an animal lives. Niche. A niche is like the very specialized job that an animal or organism does in an ecosystem. So these birds, you might think they're all in competition, they're all eating the same branches of a tree. But actually it would seem that the Cape May warbler only eats the very top. The ray-breasted warbler is below, and at the very bottom the yellow-rumped warbler. They don't compete with each other, they're so specialized in what they do. That's their niche, that's their part of the forest in which they do their thing, the niche. Now here I have a picture of a anteater. I thought anteaters would have a niche. I thought they were pretty unique because no other animal quite looks like that with a big long snout. But it turns out that anteaters are not actually a good example of an animal with a niche, because there are actually quite a lot of animals that eat ants, such as bears, such as various birds, various lizards as well. But I think perhaps a better example would be an example of a hummingbird with its long beak that would be specific for a certain plant, specifically helping pollinate that specific plant, because no other bird has a beak that long. Okay, so we have predators and prey. Very easy, if you don't know, I'm sure you do know, but for anyone who doesn't, the predator is the meat eater, in this case would be the lion, and the prey is that which is preyed upon, that which is unfortunate enough to be the meal of the predator, and in this case it's the buffalo. Symbiosis, this is when two organisms have a close relationship with one another. Alright, so yeah, I'm going to take some examples, because symbiosis is further divided into three separate categories. Commensalism, one organism benefits, the other is neither helped nor harmed. So here in this Commensalism is that is where one organism benefits, and in this case it would be the bird, which is called a cattle egret. As the cattle tear up or disturb the soil, insects or worms or whatnot become exposed, and this bird benefits by eating it. The cattle is not harmed, the cattle is not helped, and so it's an example of commensalism. Okay, so I'll just use that as an example of commensalism. Perhaps it's more like mutualism, because I think the cow actually might get a benefit from the cattle egret if it eats some of the ticks that the cattle has. Mutualism here, as it says, the mutualism is the symbiotic relationship in which both species benefit. So this is the happy relationship where both get something out of it. The bee gets honey, gets nectar in which it can make honey, and the flower gets a way of pollinating, a way of spreading its genes, of pollinating other flowers. So those flowers produce seeds, and its genes go into the next generation. Parasitism is the symbiotic. Okay, so in a parasitism, one organism, which in this case would be the leech, benefits at the expense of another, which in this case would be the human. The human is not getting anything except having its blood removed, and the leech is getting nutrition. Now I should say, perhaps, I don't know, that sometimes leeches can be quite useful, so maybe it's not. But in the case where the leech is not doing any good for the host, the human, then it is indeed parasitism. A cuckoo bird is a parasite, but a mosquito isn't. Yeah, so why? The cuckoo bird is a special kind of parasite. It's called a brood parasite. And this bird lays its egg in the nest of another egg, and in the nest of another bird. That other bird hatches the cuckoo's chick. It feeds the chick. It feeds the chick. It treats it like its own. So it's definitely not a benefit to the host, the bird that's feeding the cuckoo's chick, because resources that should be given to that bird's own chicks are being diverted to the cuckoo's chick, but the cuckoo gets something out of it. The cuckoo gets someone else to raise its young, or some other bird to raise its young, so it can go and maybe, I don't know, get pregnant again and lay another egg in another bird's nest, so it can produce more young than it otherwise would do. So in that case, it is of course winning the game of life, winning the game of life as set by the parameters of evolution. Okay, I've come to the end of my presentation. Hope to have another one up soon. Good luck.